I am the Last Wordbender, and this is my review of Captain America Civil War. I wanted to bring this review to you because I was so emotionally moved by the movie, by Captain America Civil War. I'm a big fan of superheroes, a big fan of comic books, and I'm a big fan of what Marvel is doing with their cinematic universe. And this was such a culminating event for all of that. And I left the theater just so excited, so eager to see more, so inspired as a human being. That's what that story did for me. So this is my review that I'm going to present to you. I'm going to tell you why I'm excited about it, why you should be excited about it, and just the significance that I think it holds in the realm of pop culture. And so here we go. Just so you know, this is a spoiler-free review. There will not be any spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm not going to reveal any major plot points that haven't already been revealed by Marvel in their trailers or their promotional materials for the movie. So you don't have to worry about any of that. And I present this to you just as my thoughts, my ideas, and not any definitive statements necessarily, other than ones that extend from my own opinions on the movie. So, without further ado, this is Captain America Over Everything. Captain America Civil War is Marvel operating at a mastery level. They've definitely got their 10,000 hours in the MCU. This is the third movie in the Captain America trilogy. This is the 13th movie in the MCU, which started with the first Iron Man movie in 2008. Part of what I love so much about this movie is that it supports the relevance of everything that came before it. Even plot points from some of the weaker movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are supported in this movie and used to drive the narrative forward, including like Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron. Iron Man 3, especially the second half of Iron Man 3, is almost an unforgivable transgression by Marvel. They were setting up one of the most compelling characters in their cinematic universe with the Mandarin, and then they just threw it all away for what seemed like a cheap gag, and I don't think the movie ever fully recovered from that. But Civil War still uses plot points from Iron Man 3 to push forward Tony Stark's character development and make him just super relatable in his struggle and his conflict in the movie Civil War, that I think increases the relevance of Iron Man 3, even though I didn't particularly like that movie on its own. As far as Age of Ultron, I really enjoyed Age of Ultron. I still watch it. It's still exciting, but I think we can all agree that it definitely didn't live up to the hype. And at the time that movie came out, I think a lot of us said it would have been almost impossible for Age of Ultron to live up to the hype that was established for that movie. But I think Civil War kind of negates that argument by living up to the hype and even surpassing it. And Civil War does everything that we wanted Age of Ultron to do, and it does it so effectively that it refocuses the trajectory of the Marvel Universe. I thought there was something really refreshing about the way that Marvel embraced everything it did in the past, even some of what could have been considered missteps, and they just owned it and used it to drive the narrative of this movie forward. As I go through this review, I'm going to talk about three aspects that I think really make this a great movie. I'm going to talk about the characters, I'm going to talk about the action, and I'm going to talk about the narrative. I'm going to start with the characters because Captain America Civil War is really a character study. You're presented with the scenario of, should the Avengers be governed by the United Nations, or should they continue to operate as an independent entity and operate as they see fit, saving the world as they see necessary? And then the entire film is a study of how each character reacts to this scenario and how each character reacts to the decisions of the other characters. And what becomes apparent in Civil War is just how much of a team the Avengers have become over the course of the previous 12 films, they're really a family. They genuinely care about each other. Every character is motivated by the desire to keep the team intact and to continue operating as they have been, and every character thinks that their perspective holds the key to doing this. And it's all so unselfish. There's no selfish motivations in this movie for any of these characters. And there's this tragic beauty in the idea that these characters are striving to get to this common goal, this mutual goal of keeping the team together and continuing to operate as a team. But the ways that they see fit to doing that are so polarizing that the conflict is inevitable. And the internal conflict never stops. These characters continue to care about each other throughout the course of the entire movie, and they never truly turn on each other, no matter how intense the conflict gets or how devastating the fighting becomes. And there's something inspiring about that, just to the strength of the human desire to be connected to our families, to the people that we hold dear and that we hold close to us. And the performances of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans are so genuine. I think that you see in these characters this pain, and that they're just torn through the whole movie, and you can feel the pain as they try to keep their team together, and they try to do, they want to do what's best for the team as a whole. They want to look out for their teammate. Even though they're operating in opposite directions, they never stop caring about each other. They never stop considering the other person and the other person's motivations and goals. And the performances are given in such a genuine and heartfelt way that you just connect with these characters on a real deep emotional level, and it makes you see each character's perspective and each character's side of things, and you can't pick a side. The conversation Team Cap versus Team Iron Man is just irrelevant. You can't pick a side because you understand where each of these characters is coming from, and each character has valid points, and each character is right and each character is wrong, and it's just this big beautiful mess of a conflict. The development of the other Avengers is a perfect complement to this central conflict of Tony Stark versus Steve Rogers. And there's no shallow decisions made in this movie. Every character is motivated in a way that's so true to what's already been established for their character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Some of the character highlights for me are Scarlet Witch, the Vision, and Falcon. I'm a big fan of Falcon. I've loved that character ever since he was introduced in Winter Soldier, and I thought he was a little shortchanged in the third act of Age of Ultron. But here in this movie, he's a fully developed, fully realized character. He has established his place on this team. You kind of feel him stepping into this role as one of the seasoned veteran members of the Avengers, and he fully owns that role, and he gets the screen time that I think he deserves, and he gets his actions get the resonance that I feel they deserve. The parallel arcs of the Vision and Scarlet Witch are some of the most intriguing aspects of the movie to me. These are two of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. Not just the cinematic universe, but the Marvel Universe as a whole. But when we encounter them in their movies, because this is only the second movie for each of these characters, we see that they're still struggling with the newness of these powers, and they're still trying to cope with their powers and harness them in a way that's going to be positive and impactful and not going to destroy them as individuals. And I love how Civil War shows you the growing pains that these characters have on their arcs, on their journey. And we're still very early in the arcs of both of these characters. I'm excited to see where they go as the cinematic universe progresses. Other than that, so many characters have highlights in this movie, have time to shine. Ant-Man, Black Widow, War Machine, all these characters have their moments and hold their own against the backdrop of Iron Man versus Captain America, Tony Stark versus Steve Rogers. The introduction of Black Panther and Spider-Man. I can't say enough about the way that these characters were introduced, the weight that they carry in this movie, despite the fact that we're just being introduced to these characters. It was just perfect. Like, the introduction of these characters was perfect. There was so much weight on the establishment of these two characters in the MCU, and to introduce them both in the same movie could have went so wrong, but it goes so right, and it leaves you excited for the future of these two characters. Some of my favorite moments in this movie are when these guys are on screen, and both Chadwick Boseman and Tom Holland completely own their roles and convey them with such a reverence towards the characters, Spider-Man and Black Panther. Black Panther was one of the first comics that I read in high school. I read the 1998 through 2003 run because it was available in my high school library. And Black Panther is one of the main reasons I fell in love with comic books. So to finally see him on screen was just super exciting for me. When he was on screen, I was having a hard time sitting still in the movie theater. There was just so much excitement, and Chadwick Boseman just plays the character with such a gravity. It's incredible. In regards to Spider-Man, I was one of the people that felt like rebooting Spider-Man for a third time was a huge mistake. I thought it was going to ruin the integrity of the character in the cinematic universe. And I thought it was just another way that the character was going to be mishandled. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. This is the most exciting take on Peter Parker as Spider-Man that I've seen in any medium, in the comics, in the TV shows, in the movies. This is Spider-Man, and if Marvel can translate what they did with Spider-Man in Civil War to the solo films, Tom Holland will be the definitive Spider-Man. That's how good he is. That's how good the writing for him is, and how good the way that Marvel conveys him is. And I'm really excited to see what they do with him in the solo films. And they nail it. They nail it down to the most minute detail. Even the way that the character's eyes adjust. You noticed it in the trailer. They wanted to show Spider-Man as a character that can emote even in the costume. I was a little nervous about that. I was a little nervous about how they would explain that, but even that gets an explanation in the movie, and it's really good. It's really nitpick proof. You can't argue with the logic that they used, and I love that. It just shows you how much thought they put into this character. Even the villains in this movie are really compelling. Crossbones, when he's on screen, even for the short amount of time that he's in this movie, he's terrifying. And it would have been interesting to see him as the main villain in a Captain America film. I really enjoyed that character. But Zemo fills the role well, and he does it in a way that doesn't overshadow the conflict between the Avengers themselves, which is the reason we all came to the theater to see this movie in the first place. So even in a limited capacity, you understand his motivations and you sympathize with him in a way. And I think he was given the right amount of screen time. I think he was given the right amount of development and story time, because you need an outside force and villain there, but you don't want it to overshadow the conflict between the Avengers, because we want to see the Civil War. Next, I want to talk about the action. This movie has the best action sequences of any MCU movie. After watching Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix, the Netflix series, just in awe of what Daredevil did with a lower budget, and I think that lower budget forced a level of creativity that I was worried wouldn't be present in Civil War because of the high budget. I thought that that budget might take away from some of the creativity, but it doesn't. The action in Civil War is amazing. There's a masterful balance between really good use of CGI and just great choreography, and I think this should be held up as just an example of how to integrate CGI into a blockbuster film. I loved it. The three big action set pieces, the Crossbones set piece in Act 1, the airport set piece in Act 2, and the Cap vs. Iron Man set piece in Act 3, they all just resonate. And I found myself clapping at multiple points during this film because you're so invested in these characters that you're concerned for the consequences of their action. This isn't a movie without consequence, and you recognize that early on, and it's just maintained very well through the whole film. It's always in the back of your mind, like, what's going to happen as a result of this, and how are these characters going to be affected and changed. And I think that's just the foundation for great action in any movie, and Civil War does it better than any movie in recent memory for me. The narrative is so well paced and so smartly written that it makes these action scenes resonate. And that's what I want to talk about next, the narrative. You're just so invested in these characters. You feel the tension that they feel, and you're concerned about the consequences of the fights and the decisions they're making. And when you add to that the Russo brothers had to take into account 12 other movies in this cinematic universe, it elevates the level of their accomplishment. This is an accomplishment that should be praised in the context of cinema and should be held up as a new standard for how to balance narratives in a shared universe. Captain America Civil War is a benchmark. It's a benchmark in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a benchmark in the superhero genre and in the genre of action movies and just cinema as a whole. This will be the movie that studios look to when they are trying to figure out how to tell stories that matter within the context of a shared cinematic universe. I think it has to be held up there with The Dark Knight as one of the greatest superhero films of all time. I've had a day and a half to try to process this movie, and I'm still emotionally overwhelmed by it. Civil War over everything.